Hi, my name is Belén Olmedo Guerra, and welcome to my podcast. I decided to start a podcast because it's difficult for people to understand how many people it takes to get somebody accused of a crime through the criminal system. So with this podcast, I decided to bring in different players, different people that help a lot of my clients get through their cases. Today, I'm bringing you one of my favorite people. Her name is Jean Cooper, and she is a nurse, but she does forensic work now. She has a fancy title. I'm going to let her introduce herself. But the bottom line is that Jean is one of the key expert witnesses that I use in my cases. Hey, Jean, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
We're so happy you're here because your work is very important. So tell our clients and tell our people a little bit about your title and how is it that you work together with attorneys?
Well, my title is Legal Nurse Consultant Certified plus Advanced Forensic Nurse Certified. So I'll explain that in a minute. So I am a registered nurse licensed in the state of Arizona to practice as a nurse. So I am not doing clinical work at this time. I haven't done clinical work for a little while, but I am still licensed as a nurse, which I must be to be able to do the legal nurse consulting and forensic nurse consulting that I do. I've been a nurse for a long time. I graduated from nursing school with an associate's degree in 1975. I spent the majority of my clinical time as a critical care nurse. I was certified as a...
What does that mean, Jean?
I took care of patients who were in the hospital in the critical care areas, which might be a medical ICU, a surgical ICU, neuro ICU, cardiovascular ICU, and I also worked in emergency rooms. So it's a nursing specialty that is more intense than working in a medical surgical ward. Usually the patients are extremely ill and require one nurse, at least one nurse, devoted to them at the bedside. So I did that, as I said, for a little over 20 years. I was certified as a critical care nurse for 20 years. And then I moved out of the critical care area and I worked at the VA in the Veterans Administration healthcare system for a long time, for around 30 years. So after my 20 years or so in critical care, I moved into program management for women's health. And I did that for about 14 years. Here in Phoenix, I was one of the first 11 program managers for women's health who were chosen in the VA system. And so it was so new, Congress didn't authorize health care for women in the VA until 1992.
Wow.
But that's a whole historical discussion that we won't do here. But anyway, so I worked with folks in Washington who were the heads of our program to develop the program here in Phoenix and the surrounding areas. And then after 14 years, I thought, maybe it's time for somebody else to do this. And so I retired from the VA system. And I really liked the idea of mixing understanding of medical issues with the legal field. I had thought at one point I wanted to go to law school, but I was too busy being a nurse. So when I retired from the VA, I applied for a job and a lawyer hired me. So I applied first for a medical malpractice firm, a defense firm. So that meant that they defended physicians, nurses, PAs, anybody who was a provider of medical services. That law firm defended them. Mm-hmm. And so I worked with that attorney for about 15 years, and he pushed me into expanding my roles. So I
Well, and you have been doing so much work in the last decades, and now you and I have had cases together.
right.
And we've had some very big cases. So I'm not going to reveal any facts of those cases, but in general, you can be retained by defense attorneys, right?
Yes, I can be retained by any attorney who needs someone to explain the complex medical issues of their cases. I really like doing the criminal defense work. It is exciting, it's complicated, and it's still affecting people's lives one person at a time for the clients.
Sometimes I have clients that have complex medical situations, or the accusations are complex also. So we have banker boxes of records, and that's what I love about working with you, because you can help us figure it out what everything means. Can you talk a little bit about how you've helped me in my cases? We've had two big cases, the one with the accusation with the medical. If we could talk about that, how you helped me develop the defense for my client. And Jean also helped me figure it out a doctor that could be also an expert in that case, where we found a rare congenital disorder coupled with other issues that the victim had.
So yes, and so that's my job, is to get the medical records through you and review them and distill them for you, but also figure out the focus of the case, so that you don't go in, so you as the attorney does not go down a rabbit hole that is not necessary. So I review the records, I develop a chronology of the medicine with no opinions or anything. It is a chronology of the medical records, what happened during medical care through the years. And then I write a summary, a narrative summary of that. And in that summary, I include what I call the issues and concerns section, which is my questions, my observations of what's gone on in the medical record, whether there's maybe it looks like they missed something, or there is such a complicated medical situation that
Let me tell a little bit to our viewers what we did in that case. I know you're trying not to give too much, but basically our client was accused of a homicide, and it was not good. Well, no homicide is good, but this one in particular. And so working with Jean and looking at the allegations, then we started getting more records and more records, and Jean was able to put this puzzle together that led us to an alternative defense, an explanation of the situation that gave so much clarity in that case. It was crystal clear, but it only became crystal clear after Jean was able to translate to something that I could understand, and in turn, I could translate to the state that the victim was already sick, that it wasn't our client that caused the death of the victim. And then you helped us figure it out, how to find this expert of this rare condition.
So, and that is also part of what I do. So as I'm summarizing the records and kind of figuring out what those complex issues are, I also help to identify the most appropriate medical expert for those issues, to address those issues. Because if you think about it, a doctor is obviously very smart, educated, and can address a lot of things, but maybe you need a pathologist instead of a psychiatrist or a general practitioner or a surgeon. So I help you to figure out what discipline and who is the best expert for your case. And yes, we discovered a wonderful expert who is a great teacher. That's one of the things also when I help to find expert witnesses, medical witnesses, is to make sure that they not only are so knowledgeable and meet the criteria for expert witness work, but also they're great teachers and can communicate with people other than medical people. So, and it is very rewarding to work with them. And so we did that, and thank goodness we really were successful with the outcome of that case.
100%. I think that the state missed so much in the prosecution of that case, but it wasn't only the prosecutor, it was everybody in the medical field that had been involved for 4 years before they even pressed charges against my client. There was so much that was done, and so many doctors that had come across the victim, and nobody had identified it. But once we were able to get Jean on the case and then the expert, everything came together. This is why it's so important to work with someone like Jean who can help with all of that. And now we're working on 2 other cases that one of them has very rare condition as well. And so tell me what else you do, because you write the chronology, but also you can write a report, right?
I can write a report. And I also can do fact witnessing. So because I'm no longer clinical, I really cannot I cannot provide witness testimony as a clinical person. But I can, if the records are so voluminous that they're not reasonable to take into court, I can testify about what's in those records. I can testify about the fact that they're so voluminous. So I don't do that very often, which is very good. I prefer to be in the background and help with case development and help the attorneys understand the pertinent issues of the case so that they don't waste time with going to a wrong direction.
And that's pre-trial. So pre-trial, we're putting together the mitigation, the medical records, the defense, and provide a full picture. Like we're working on some cases where my clients have the medical conditions, so we're trying to explain that to the state. But if the case doesn't settle, you could go testify in court.
I can testify to the facts that are in a medical record. Yes, I can do that. And if I'm not a testifying expert in a certain case, I still can assist the attorneys in court by listening to testimony as it's related to the medical records and then validate or help the attorney to either validate or refute what was said, say, by a certain witness.
And how does, are you available to be hired by the defense?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
I am. I can be consulted at any time. Yes. And because I'm not clinical and because I can work also across state lines, so say somebody in Connecticut wanted me to assist them with the case, I can do that. Just like expert witnesses can be out of state, expert medical witnesses can be out of state. They don't necessarily have to practice in Arizona.
And you work remote for those cases, and if need be, you could travel there.
I could.
Right?
Yes,
Okay.
I do work remotely.
And so I'm happy to provide your information to anybody who needs it. And individuals who are like Jean and Jean herself, they're key to the defense. They're key to putting together these complex situations to put them in bite size for the state to be able to understand not only what their case could have wrong or they missed, like we did in one big case, but also what our clients are going through. So Jean has been really good about working also with my clients and their families to put together a synopsis of their health and their needs. So I'm very grateful that you came today, Jean, and as always, we look forward to working with you more. And if anybody needs Jean's contact information, I'll put it in the comments below. And she's wonderful.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for all your hard work, for working with our clients and in the cases. And good luck. I know you're in a case right now that went to trial, and you're going to be testifying in that.
No, I'm behind the scenes in that.
Okay.
Which is, it's
a complex case.
Yeah, it's quite complex. But thank you. Thank you for inviting me today.
Of course.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming, Jean. Thank you. Till next time.